media world, Molly Qerim, I believe that's how you say her last name. She is actually going to be stepping down from First Take today, or she at the end of the year, she was going to be stepping down as the host of First Take.
More details have been released as to why Molly Qerim abruptly quit ESPN. And when I say abruptly quit, I mean, she left work, I think it was on Monday, and she never came back.
It's not every day we see the unstoppable machine of ESPN, one of the slickest and most unshakable partnerships in American sports media, suddenly slam the eject button on its morning show queen. The shock was instant. Molly Qerim, the face of First Take for 10 straight years, didn't stroll into a champagne-soaked farewell or some carefully planned tribute montage. Nope. Her resignation exploded out of nowhere in mid-September 2025, a date now treated like toxic waste in Bristol's hallways. ESPN's top brass scrambled to spin it as business as usual, with Burke Magnus chanting the no controversy line in interview after interview. But insiders couldn't even say it with a straight face. Everyone smelled smoke and knew there was fire somewhere. Even ESPN's own executives had to quietly admit the timing blindsided them. On social media, the word abrupt didn't even begin to describe it. 10 years in that iconic host chair, and then she was erased overnight, like she'd never been there at all. The official press releases were full of warm, empty comfort food, but whispers were already spilling everywhere backstage. And then came the first strange breadcrumb: Molly's Instagram farewell.
I also wonder, bro, like from a human perspective, Molly was your sidekick for 10 years. We don't need to know she abruptly resigned.
Yeah.
Protect her at all costs.
Yeah.
That's my big thing, Social Trey.
I thought she was
Like,
here for the end of the year. I guess she's done now.
Remember, she didn't want it to leak, because Molly ends up putting out a statement that, hey, it's unfortunately leaked, I didn't want it to, etc., but protect her at all costs.
Fans were left squinting for hidden meaning as she poured out generic thanks to viewers for welcoming me into your homes. She called it an honor, a privilege, all the usual Emmy night buzzwords, but gave nothing else. No details, no explanation, not a single clue why she was walking when negotiations were supposedly still active. But here's where it gets icy. Molly never once typed the name of Stephen A. Smith. Not a thank you, not a tag, not even a slip of acknowledgement. For a decade, she'd shared the desk, the spotlight, and plenty of fiery on-air battles with Smith, the most powerful voice at ESPN. And suddenly, it was like he didn't exist to her anymore. And then, radio silence. If anyone needed proof that something had gone sour behind closed doors, that silence wasn't just quiet. It blasted like a foghorn. Her feed went dark, and instead of warm goodbyes, fans were left dissecting cryptic posts. Describe yourself in 3 words: aware, thoughtful, and that's it. No closure, no bridge, no olive branch. If you think we're overanalyzing social media etiquette, just ask Marcellus Wiley. The former ESPN host, ex-NFL star, and forever loudmouth wasted no time before snatching his mic and throwing jet fuel on the rumors. On his podcast, Wiley broke it down like this: it was about money and control, plain and simple. Molly wants more money to stay on that show, or gimme what I want and let me do more. That was the ultimatum. According to Wiley, ESPN's suits balked at both. No sugarcoating, no soft landings. He swore Molly was done playing Morning Zoo sidekick for a paycheck that didn't match her grind. And he didn't stop there. Wiley claimed her relationship with Stephen A. was already crumbling. He said flat out, if Smith had gone to bat for her, the network would have found the money. Instead, Molly, after 10 years of carrying their top-rated show, after corporate loyalty that made ESPN millions, was treated like she was disposable. Just another cog in their machine. Wiley painted it raw. ESPN wanted the ratings queen without the price tag, and Stephen A.'s silence sealed her fate. When he signs off on you, you win. When he doesn't, you're toast. That's how Marcellus Wiley put it. And honestly, it doesn't get more inside baseball than that. ESPN is a world where you can be the backbone of the #1 morning show, yet still earn pennies compared to analysts on smaller platforms. Simply because Stephen A. Smith never gave you his blessing. Wiley even dropped names. Mina Kimes reportedly pulling in a bigger salary while Molly was stuck negotiating for scraps. That comparison cut deep, and Wiley made damn sure everyone heard it.
Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement.
Meanwhile, the official ESPN line was still spinning the fairy tale. No controversy, no shoe to drop. Burke Magnus and the higher-ups swore Molly just wanted to turn the page after a decade, maybe explore new opportunities. They wanted us to believe this was all about life changes, like everyone was still friends and everything was squeaky clean. But the evidence screamed otherwise. Even Magnus himself slipped up, admitting the timing wasn't what we planned. Molly's agent stayed silent, and yet the network's actions spoke louder than any press release. Her absence triggered an immediate scramble. Tryouts were already underway for her replacement. Names flew fast. Malika Andrews, Joy Taylor, Peter Schrager. ESPN wasn't just replacing a host. They were publicly shopping for a crown jewel to fill that chair. And then came the juiciest twist. Rumors of a massive Fox Sports offer. Millions on the table. Word was, FOX had been circling, ready to hand Molly NFL coverage, college football, even top studio shows. Deals like that don't appear out of thin air. Somebody on the inside clearly tipped her off. The house was already burning down. Back in Bristol, the heat kept climbing. And it wasn't just Molly refusing to acknowledge Stephen A. Smith. The silence was mutual, and that made the tension 10 times louder. Smith himself got oddly tight-lipped about what went down. He opened First Take with a tribute so sweet it could have been spread on toast, calling Molly a friend and a huge part of the show's legacy. But that glossy performance didn't convince everyone. Emmanuel Acho wasn't buying the act, and he said what the rest of sports media was whispering. Don't tell us the details. Then tell us you're not going to tell us the details. Acho clapped back on his own show. And Smith, in classic magician style, he revealed just enough to keep the crowd hooked. He claimed the details were none of your business, insisted he didn't know everything, then slyly admitted he had an idea why she left. It was sports media's version of the shell game. You see the pee, then it's gone, then bam, it's under another cup. Molly won't say a single word about Stephen A. Meanwhile, Stephen A. swears he's in the dark while also acting like he knows the secret recipe. There's no way that's coincidence. Not during contract wars. Not after a decade side by side on the highest wire of morning TV. Awkward doesn't even cover it. And just as the smoke settled from Molly's disappearing act, something even stranger happened. ESPN started handing Stephen A. new power like clockwork, rolling out perks and titles as if her absence was the green light he'd been waiting for. Then came the real bombshell, Stephen A. Smith's promotion.
Yourself in 3 words. Aware, thoughtful, and passionate. What do you have too much of? Shoes. Guilty pleasure.
Retail therapy.
What would you do if you didn't host First Take?
I would work for a global nonprofit or host a travel.
They revealed his shiny new role on Monday Night Football, one of ESPN's crown jewel broadcasts, a stage normally kept airtight and carefully controlled. Smith was already locked into a $100 million mega deal, but now? Suddenly, he wasn't just the face of First Take. He was rubbing shoulders with Jason Kelce, Scott Van Pelt, and football's biggest power players. Smith himself practically bragged about it, saying, "They'll certainly want more of me on NBA Countdown, whatever's going to help the network succeed." And the timing, unmissable. 1 week, Molly's fighting over contracts and creative freedom. The next, she's erased. Meanwhile, Smith is everywhere. The message couldn't have been louder. ESPN picked their horse for the next decade of NFL coverage. That's the angle fans online jumped on instantly. Molly's abrupt departure didn't look like a natural ending to a partnership. It looked like a chess move. A ruthless, premeditated play by the network itself? Think about it. Remove the one person who could block Smith's all-purpose takeover, and suddenly ESPN can hand him to the NFL on a silver platter. With Smith front and center on football's grandest stage, Molly's empty chair became a symbol. To plenty of insiders, it wasn't chance. It was calculated. And fans took it even further, speculating this wasn't just about Stephen A's ego. It might have been tied to ESPN's backroom deal-making with the NFL. Could Molly's exit have been the price of keeping those billion-dollar league relationships intact? Loyalty out, business in. While ESPN's official statements kept droning on about new opportunities and business as usual, the real story was only just cracking the surface. Because in sports media, exits like this aren't neat little endings. They're the trigger for a full-blown power reshuffle that rewrites the playbook from top to bottom. Even as the dust from Molly's abrupt departure was still floating, Burke Magnus was already trotting out his favorite line in every interview. "There's no shoe to drop." He repeated it with almost religious discipline, hoping to smother the speculation. But the effect? The exact opposite. If nothing shady was happening, why did ESPN's response feel more like a crisis management script than a natural goodbye? And then came the curveball. Just days after Molly's exit, ESPN suddenly announced a shiny new multi-year extension for Malika Andrews. The timing was impossible to ignore. Andrews locked up mere hours after Molly's farewell post hit Instagram. Fans didn't need a detective board to see the pattern. At the same time, ESPN wasted no time parading a carousel of fill-in hosts for First Take. 30 to 45 days of auditions lined up back-to-back, like the network already had a polished shortlist sitting in a secret folder just waiting for Molly to disappear. If this is ESPN's definition of no shoe dropping, then every fan watching knows we've all been in the wrong business. From the outside, it didn't look random. It looked coordinated. One anchor cut loose, another star secured, and a revolving door of hopefuls shoved in front of the camera while the machine never stopped rolling. And social media? They noticed immediately. The hashtags, the threads, the conspiracy charts. Fans knew this wasn't just coincidence. It was strategy in plain sight. Fans weren't buying ESPN's polished PR about creative freedom and fresh starts. Nope, the whispers only got louder. People began asking if the network had been prepping for Molly's exit behind the scenes all along, lining up Malika Andrews as the next franchise face while quietly bracing for the storm. And honestly, the lightning-fast pivot looked way too perfect to be accidental. Even Burke Magnus had to admit the timing wasn't what we planned. But everything else moved like it was set to autopilot the second Molly's Instagram post hit the timeline. One door slammed shut, another star was instantly elevated, and fans weren't fooled by the choreography. But here's the real kicker. While ESPN tried selling the world on smooth transitions and succession planning, the network still couldn't outrun the shadows swirling around Stephen A. Smith himself. Old footage started resurfacing, moments that suddenly hit different in the wake of Molly's departure. Take one clip. Smith joking about Molly's eating habits during breaks, even comparing her to a panelist refusing to kiss snakes. Maybe it was meant as nothing more than a throwaway line, but online? That comment blew up. Social media branded it weird and inappropriate, with some even suggesting it hinted at resentment. Or worse, a toxic power dynamic that never made it off camera. Whether harmless banter or something uglier, those on-air slip-ups piled up like evidence in a case file. Critics have long argued ESPN shields its golden star while applying harsher standards to everyone else. And now, the narrative looked undeniable. Stephen A. was untouchable, climbing higher than ever, while his longtime co-host was erased before her chair even cooled down. Of course, the question everyone couldn't stop asking was this: why did Molly Qerim stay silent about Stephen A. Smith after her shocking exit? Was it just professionalism, or did that silence point to something much deeper? Fans swore her restraint, no mention, no thank you, no playful back and forth on social media, wasn't just absence, it was its own message. Speculation ran wild across threads. Was she forced into a clean break? Did she sign an NDA? Or did she simply decide avoiding a public feud was smarter than throwing gasoline on a fire? Meanwhile, Stephen A. wasn't helping. He teased just enough to make things worse, saying, "That story is for her to tell." Do I have an idea? Of course I do. Am I going to share it with you? No. With those words, he didn't close the door. He blew it wide open. If Stephen A. really knows something explosive, he's making sure the next move isn't his. And that silence only fueled darker theories about what really went down behind the cameras. But let's zoom out, because this isn't just about bruised egos or broken friendships. It's about the gravitational pull of the NFL and ESPN's willingness to orbit closer and closer to the league's demands. Just trace the timeline. Molly gone, Stephen A. suddenly elevated to Monday Night Football, and FOX circling Molly with a multi-million-dollar offer to cover, you guessed it, the NFL and college football. It's almost poetic. Both Stephen A.'s rise and Molly's rumored next chapter revolve around the same golden ticket: football. And for ESPN, the NFL isn't just another property. It's the crown jewel, the billion-dollar engine powering their entire future. Any move that tightens that bond, even if it means cutting loose a loyal host, suddenly looks less like betrayal and more like brutal business strategy. Insiders whisper it plain. This isn't about chemistry, journalism, or who sparks the best debates anymore. It's about who keeps ESPN closest to the NFL's throne. Now it's all about keeping league executives smiling, keeping broadcast windows stuffed, and clearing every potential roadblock out of the way. The game inside ESPN has changed, and the culture is shifting in real time. Everyone's eyes are locked on the next signal as tryouts for Molly's abandoned chair begin, even while her exit is still trending in headlines. Courtney Cronin, Joy Taylor, Peter Schrager, solid names, sure. But none of them carry Molly's history or the leverage she built over a decade. Every day the network pushes the same mantra: First Take will survive, the debates will go on, and the next star is waiting in the wings. But behind the curtains, the truth feels way less comfortable. With Stephen A.'s power at an all-time high, the message for any future host is chillingly clear: keep the peace, or you'll be swapped out before your contract ink even dries. And the numbers tell the story louder than any press release. Stephen A.'s $100 million mega contract didn't just crown him the highest-paid face in Bristol. It made him the symbol of ESPN's new world order. A world where money and corporate firepower trump every other value. Insiders couldn't help comparing his jackpot deal to Molly's stalled negotiations, where even her requests for a raise or creative freedom got brushed aside. The contrast is brutal. Stephen A.'s willingness to step onto any show, cover any league, and say yes to whatever the network demanded put him exactly where ESPN wanted him. Always on call, always available, and most importantly, ready to deliver whatever the NFL wanted without a single fight. That kind of flexibility doesn't come cheap, and it comes with an unspoken rule. Loyalty to the league, not to your colleagues, is what gets rewarded now. Inside ESPN's evolving hierarchy, the message is crystal clear. Serve the NFL and NBA first. Everything else is optional. But this shift has psychological fallout too. Stephen A.'s transformation from fiery commentator to polished corporate ambassador means every move, every contract, every casting shuffle ripples outward with him firmly at the center. To many insiders, he's living proof that ESPN's priorities have shifted beyond repair. The man who once sparred for fans now sells league harmony, star power, and access above all else. And then there's Molly. Her sudden vanishing act, combined with the eerie silence around her contributions, has become a warning shot to anyone still expecting old-school loyalty or fair play. She gave the network a decade. In the end, it barely gave her a footnote. Stephen A.'s rise wasn't just about his talent or chemistry. It was ESPN reshaping itself into a service arm for the leagues. His adaptability, his public allegiance to the company line, that's what made him untouchable. Molly's refusal to simply nod along? That's what made her disposable. The clash was brutal. Money and league service on one side versus journalistic integrity and genuine on-air chemistry on the other. That's the new ESPN. The faces will rotate, the shows will rebrand, but as long as billion-dollar contracts dictate the playbook, every future host and producer will be judged by a colder standard. And for fans who still remember when debates felt raw and authentic, when ESPN seemed accountable to viewers instead of just corporate partners, the split between Smith and Molly isn't just another office shakeup, it's a blueprint for the network's future. The cruelest irony? The very thing Molly reportedly asked for, more creative power, freedom to build her own platform, was the one thing denied. Instead, she was erased while Stephen A. got handed every stage in the building. Her next play, it's sitting right there on the table at FOX Sports, with millions attached. Molly's Instagram farewell hinted her journey wasn't finished, closing with just 2 words: stay tuned. That wasn't a goodbye, that was a warning. If Fox really gives her the freedom she fought for, we might finally hear the truth about what went down inside those ESPN conference rooms. The questions hang heavy. Did Molly witness backroom deals? Choices made not for the fans, not for the debates, but to protect billion-dollar contracts with the NFL? Was her silence bought by lawyers? Or is she simply waiting for the perfect moment to drop her own bombshell? Even Stephen A. looked uneasy, dodging details while speculation spiraled out of control. That alone says plenty. And that's the tightrope ESPN now walks, juggling shiny new faces, hyping expanded league coverage, all while desperately hoping Molly's story fades before the wrong questions catch fire. But let's be real, her silence still screams louder than any press release, and her next move could flip the entire script. If Molly comes out with a tell-all or drops receipts about ESPN's true loyalty to the NFL, what happens then? Will the network finally be exposed for putting billion-dollar deals over the people who built its shows from the ground up? Fans aren't blind. They're waiting and they're ready. So as the cameras roll, the host chair stays empty. Stephen A. steps deeper into football spotlight, and Molly gears up for her next chapter. We've got to ask, when the truth finally hits daylight, whose side will ESPN really stand on? The fans and journalists who made them, or the league cutting the checks? This saga isn't over. It's just heating up. Drop your wildest theories in the comments. Let me know if you think Molly's silence is strategy or survival. Smash that like button, share this video with your crew, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Because in the world of sports scandals, nothing stays buried forever. And trust me, the best receipts haven't even been dropped yet. See you on the next one.